Charles Darwin, the originator of the theory of evolution. Margaret Sanger, founder of Planned Parenthood. John Harvey Kellogg, inventor of cornflakes. And Adolf Hitler, the man behind the Holocaust. What do all these people have in common? Well, they were all proponents of the eugenics movement. This movement was founded by Francis Galton, who was inspired by Charles Darwin's 1859 publication, The Origin of Species, the 1944 discovery that DNA was the heritable material, and society's gradual acceptance of evolution. Galton was a man of many achievements, including perfecting the act of making tea, working on celestial signaling systems, designing a map of the world's most beautiful women, and fingerprinting. But most are overshadowed by his modern-day ideas of eugenics, which came into popularity in the 20th century. Eugenics, from Greek roots meaning well-born, is the science, or some would say pseudoscience, of selective breeding in humans. The goal was to improve the physical and mental makeup of the human race. In practice, this can be done by increasing the frequency of good alleles, also referred to as positive eugenics, or through negative eugenics, which is achieved by trying to decrease or eliminate inferior genes. Those with political and scientific power at the time decided that entire populations had inferior genes, while others were considered desirables. For example, field observations led Galton to conclude that African people were 2 grades inferior to Anglo-Saxons' position in the normal frequency distribution of general mental ability. Minorities and immigrants were targeted, but so were those of any race with lower economic status. Another issue was that certain behavioral attributes, like success and talent, were said to be due exclusively to nature, in this case, traits controlled by single heritable genes, rather than to nurture, which includes such things as social advantage, learned behaviors, and environmental factors. Galton urged to prevent the free propagation of the stock of those who were seriously affected by lunacy, feeble-mindedness, habitual criminality, and pauperism, since the burden of caring for such degenerates represented a huge cost to society. He also encouraged those with desirable genes to procreate, outbreed, and displace other populations. Following its increased popularity throughout Europe, the eugenics movement soon moved to the United States. In 1907, Indiana became the first state to pass a sterilization act. Other states soon followed, some with expanded lists of hereditary defects, even including deafness and promiscuity. These programs found legal support in the Supreme Court, and it's estimated that as many as 60,000 forced or coerced sterilizations occurred. Some people were sterilized during other medical procedures without ever being told it was going to happen. Despite its tragic history in so many different countries, the worst eugenics case happened in Nazi Germany. German eugenics started with race hygiene and forcible sterilization of those with feeble-mindedness, alcoholism, schizophrenia, and epilepsy, and ended with mass murder, or as we refer to it today as the Holocaust. After that, the eugenics movement lost popularity. The interpretation by major proponents of eugenics was determined to be wrong, both morally and scientifically. However, there are still modern-day practices of eugenics. Positive eugenics has always been around, such as when we look for good traits in our life partners. Sperm banks, often cited as examples of eugenics of the past, still exist today. Where they differ is that they are not made specifically from all white donors as was previously done, but they are the same in that they still require much of their donors. One sperm bank, for example, requires donors to be at least 5'9" and currently attending or have graduated from university. Prenatal genetic testing allows parents to identify possible genetic diseases and gives them the option to abort the fetuses with these conditions. For instance, Charlot-Lozier Institute reported that in 1991, the world had an estimated termination rate of 92% for fetuses found to have Down syndrome. Embryos from in vitro fertilization are also genetically tested, and only the ones without predisposition to certain harmful diseases are implanted in the mother's womb. There's a high possibility that this expensive technology will be applied to modify and select for the embryos with the most desirable non-disease traits. If so, perhaps only the upper class will have the chance to have these intelligent, healthy, strong, attractive designer babies, which may lead to a greater divide and disadvantage between the rich and the poor. Another modern-day example of genetic modification for eugenic purposes is gene therapy. Gene therapy consists of directly changing the genetic material in the body to treat or prevent disease. This has allowed for more and more people to be cured of disease and to live normal lives. Further advances in medicine and technology allow for people that would have been considered for sterilization in the past to lead healthy lives. In fact, a group of scientists from MIT have utilized CRISPR, a gene editing technology, to successfully fix disease genes in viable human embryos in August of this year. In the present day, society has a greater, more accurate scientific understanding of genetics than they did in prior years. But the morality of possible scientific applications, especially those surrounding eugenic applications, is still in question. To summarize this is a quote from D. Miklos and E. Carlson. "We stand at the threshold of a new century, with the whole human genome stretched out before us. But at the turn of the last century, science and society faced a similar rush to exploit human genetics."